Dear students, greetings for the day. Today we will study fabric construction methods. Textile fabrics are most commonly woven but may also be produced by knitting, felting, lace making, net making, non-woven processes and tufting or a combination of these processes. Weaving. A woven cloth is formed by the interlacement of two sets of threads, namely, warp and weft threads. These threads are interlaced with one another according to the type of weave or design. The warp threads are those that run longitudinally along the length of the fabric, and the weft threads are those that run transversely across the fabric. Warp and weft yarns are at right angles to each other in the plane of a fabric. A device that aids in this process is the loom. Loom, one of the man's simplest and versatile tools, has not changed in its basic structure since it was invented in prehistoric times. There is no specificity of when and how a loom was developed, but it is thought as a device used in weaving as a part of the developing civilizations. Meager evidence left behind from nature's hazards indicates that weaving probably developed after basketry and mat making. Woven fabrics are classified as to weave or structure according to the manner in which warp and weft cross each other. The three fundamental weaves, of which others are variations, are the plain, twill, and satin. Among the three, plain weave is the simplest and cheapest to produce, and so most of the fabrics are available in this weave. Fabrics in light, medium and heavy weight can be produced in this weave. Twill weave has a distinct design in the form of diagonal called wales. This is a sturdy weave most used in work clothes. Only medium and heavy weight fabrics are produced in this weave. The third basic weave, satin, has long warp floats on the surface, which creates characteristic luster. It is almost similar to twill, but the characteristic diagonal lines are interrupted purposefully to create a smooth, lustrous surface. Woven fabrics are usually smooth, unless thicker yarns are used in the construction of the fabric. The edges generally fray quite easily, but tighter the weave, the stronger it is and the less likely it is to fray. They are more stable in wear and tear and may shrink less than 2%. Weaving also requires huge investments, and fashion demands cannot be made quickly. Yarns, warp and filling have different characteristics, and the fabric performs differently in the warp and filling direction. Stronger yarns are used in the warp-wise direction, as they undergo more tension and friction than weft yarns. Most fabrics stretch less in the warp direction. The warp yarns lie straighter in the fabric because of loom tension. They show less crimp. Decorative or special function yarns, yarns with slack twist, yarns with little twist are usually the filling. Warp yarns tend to be smaller, with higher twist. Grain. The grain indicates the direction of the warp or weft yarns. Lengthwise grain is a position along the warp yarns. Crosswise grain is along the filling yarn. Fabric count/thread counts. Fabric count or count is the number of warp and filling yarns per square inch of gray goods. Count is written with the warp number first and followed by weft number. Fabric count is an indication of the quality of fabric. The higher the count, the better the quality for any one fabric and less potential shrinkage and less raveling of seam edges. Balance. Balance is the ratio of the warp yarns to filling yarns in a fabric. A fabric is said to be well balanced if the number of warp yarns and filling yarns are almost equal. For example, a piece of muslin with a thread count of 64 by 60 is considered well balanced. Fabric width. The loom determines the width of the fabric. It is measured from selvage to the selvage. Hand-woven fabrics are generally 27-36 inches wide. Selvage. The lengthwise finished edges when yarns are closely packed are called self edges. It is the self edge of a fabric formed by the filling yarn when it turns to go back across the fabric. The conventional loom has the selvage on both sides of the fabric. Usually the selvage can be done in 4 different ways. Plain selvage, similar to the rest of the fabric. Tape selvage, done with larger or pile yarn to give strength. Split selvage, done for narrow width fabrics after cutting and finished with the machine chain or hem. Fused selvage, heat-sealed edges of ribbon. Knitting. The word knit came from the word knot. Knitting is a very efficient and versatile method of making fabric. It is the second most frequently used method of fabric construction. Half of the apparel fabric are made by knitting. Fabric is produced by forming loops with yarn, which is interlaced in a variety of ways to form the fabric. Knitted fabrics may be constructed with a single yarn that is formed into interlocking loops by the use of special hooked needles. Since the object of knitting is to construct an elastic, porous fabric, the yarns are more loosely twisted than they are for weaving. A horizontal row of knitted loops is called a course. A column of loops is known as a wale. The number of courses and wales per inch or unit length, and the total number of loops per unit area are directly related to the fabric quality. The higher the number in each group, the better is the fabric. Knitting is a cloth manufacturing process in which needles are used to form a series of interlocking loops from one or more yarns or from a set of yarns. In textile knitting, there are 2 types of stitch used by the manufacturer to produce a knitted product: warp knitted and weft knitted stitches. Each of them has different properties in terms of advantages and disadvantages, and also the ways of production process. Weft knitting is a method of forming a fabric in which the loops are made in the horizontal way from a single yarn. Intermeshing of loops takes place across the fabric, in weft knit or filling knit. The weft knit is derived from age-old technique of hand knitting. Most of the sweaters, cardigans, and other knitted outerwear are weft knitted garments. There are 3 basic knitted stitches: knit, purl tuck and miss, float or non-knit, which form the starting point for the entire range of weft knitted structure. The 3 basic simple weft knits are: they are composed of all purl or all knit structures. They differ in appearance and performance. Warp knitting is method of fabric forming in which the loops are made in a vertical way along the length of the fabric. Intermeshing of loops takes place in flat form on lengthwise basis. Here numerous ends of yarns are fed simultaneously to individual needles plaited in a lateral fashion. The fabric has a flatter, closer, less elastic knit than weft knit and is very often run-resistant. Lace and net fabrics, tricot, tricot, and rashkal fabrics are made in warp knits. Both warp and filling knits are made by machine. There are two basic types of knitting machine, the flat type and the circular type. So, knit fabrics are found in flat, tubular and shaped fabrics. They are unique in their ability to be shaped into the size and of garment parts as the fabric is formed. Garments made from such shaped pieces are called full-fashion garments. Flat knits are cut and sewed into garments. Circular knots may be used in garments without side seam. Knitting process is faster than weaving but requires more yarn for the production of same yardage of fabric. Knitted fabrics are used in sportswear, casual wear, dress wear, lingerie, hosiery, t-shirts etc. Greater percentage of women's and children garments are made from knits. Knits are also used in technical textiles application, medical textiles such as hernia mesh, vascular grafts. The advantage of stretchability in knitted fabrics is an important consideration where fit and comfort are concerned. Knitted fabrics give warmth because of the insulative air pockets contained in them. Yet they are porous and have breathing comfort. Fabrics are absorbent, light in weight, and wrinkle-resistant, having neatness retention. Fabrics are less stable in wear and care. Many shrink more than 5%. Designs can be changed very rapidly, and so response to changes in fashion demands can be made more quickly. These are structures that have not been produced by conventional methods of weaving and knitting. Non-woven fabric structures are made from fiber webs by mechanical, chemical, thermal or solvent bonding of the fibers or by interlocking the fibers by a needling process. The term non-woven does not include felts made of wool fibers. With the development of man-made fibers and in particular the synthesis of thermoplastic fibers, technologies have evolved and made possible the large-scale production of non-woven fabrics. Non-woven fabrics are made from both staple and filament fibers. Properties of non-wovens depend on the fiber content. A non-woven fabric is manufactured sheet, web or bat of directional or random orientated fibers, bonded by friction and/or cohesion and/or adhesion, excluding paper. Non-wovens are also called as formed fabrics or bonded fabrics. The first stage in the manufacture of non-wovens is the production of the web. The fibers in the web may be staple or filament. The fibers in the web must then be bonded by some means, and there are several basic methods available for the binding of fibrous web to produce non-X0002-woven fabrics: felting, adhesive bonding, stitch bonding, thermal bonding, needle punching, hydro-entangling. According to the use, these are divided into two types: durable, disposables. Durables include the use for caps, interlinings, interfacing, home furnishing, draperies, furniture upholstery, mattress padding as filters, insulation, and roadbed stabilization sheeting. Disposables include dust cloths, diapers, sanitary napkins, surgical and industrial masks, bandages and towels. They appear as paper-like, felt-like, or like woven fabric. They may be soft, resilient or hard, stiff, less pliable. They may be translucent or opaque. The thickness and other physical properties may depend upon the end uses of felts. Braided fabrics. Braiding is a simple form of narrow fabric construction. A braid is a rope-like thing, which is made by interweaving 3 or more strands, strips, or lengths in a diagonally overlapping pattern. Braided fabrics have a diagonal surface effect. They are made in plaiting 3 or more yarns that originate from a single location and lie parallel before the interlacing occurs. They are used for various industrial applications. They have good elongation characteristics and are very pliable, curving round edges nicely. Braiding are produced from any of the textile fibers: cotton, jute, nylon, glass fiber, rubber, etc., as well as from metal threads, tinsel, straw, wire or leather. Braiding can be classified as 2- and 3-dimensional braiding. 2-dimensional braid structure can be circular/round/tubular or flat braid. Circular, round braids, tubular in form, which may be hollow or have a center core of some material. Flat braids, in the form of strips or narrow flat tapes. Flat braids serve for trimming. Circular braids appear in such items as shoelaces, ropes, and insulation of wires. Braided fabrics have considerable stretch in the length and some in the width. Braided fabrics. Braiding is more significant for industrial fabrics than consumer textiles. Braiding is one of the major fabrication methods for composite reinforcement structures, with increasing application of electrical wires and cables, harnesses, hoops, industrial belts and surgical sutures. Nets are open mesh fabrics with large geometric interstices between the yarns. All net fabrics made before 1800 were knotted by hand. In early days, nets were made by knotting the yarns at each point of intersection, and to some extent this is still done. Modern net fabrics are produced not only by the netting method but also by weaving, knitting, and crocheting, and are usually machine-made. The meshes vary greatly in shape and size, and weights range from fine to coarse and can be made from almost any material. They still have the open mesh effect but not as durable as those formed by the old knotting technique. Nets appear in such items as evening apparel, curtains, window screens, fishing nets, sports equipment and hammocks. One of the most important qualities of netting is transparency. Types of netting vary in transparency depending on the material used and the tightness of the knotting. All the tiny holes between the knots in netting make the fabric extremely breathable. Mesh netting is used for sports jerseys because it does not keep in heat and dries quickly. Netting is flexible because the pattern of knots mold to whatever shape the designer wants. Many types of netting are stretchy. Macrame is a technique of making fabric with knotting of yarns. The word macrame seems to be Arabic in origin. It does not require specialized tools. The yarns or cords are fastened to a holding cord. The work is done by creating a variety of knots that joins the cords at different intervals. This technique is used for handicraft items and fashion accessories, mostly for example wall panels, bags, towel hangers, belts, bands, necklaces, bangles, jackets, etc. Lace is an open-work fabric consisting of a network of threads or yarns formed into intricate designs. No one knows when lace was made. but specimens in museums have been dated as early as 2500 BC. Lace is a product of a combination of procedures including yarn twisting, interloping, knotting, braiding, twisting or stitching thread into decorative, open-work patterns. It may be handmade or machine-made. The Lever's lace-making machine was developed by John Lever and his brothers in 1837. Yarns used in making lace are stronger and more firmly twisted than those for other types of fabrics. Laces can be manufactured in many widths and shapes with a practically limitless variety of patterns. Handmade laces have always been highly prized as trimming for apparel and as decorative pieces for the home. Until the 16th, all laces were made essentially in the same manner with a bone pin or needle. Linen yarns are generally used for making of expensive laces, but cotton, silk, rayon, and other yarns are now used for various qualities and types and widths. Lace is used in apparel and home furnishings. Narrow laces are used for trims and insertions. Wide lace fabrics are used for curtains, tablecloths, and garments. Felts are produced directly from the fibers, which has the ability to form into the mats of fibers in the presence of pressure, moisture, and heat. Felts are mostly made of wool fibers and hair fibers due to their unique surface scales, or few blends containing wool fibers. Felt may vary in width, length, color, or thickness depending on its intended application. This matted material is particularly useful for padding and lining as it is dense and can be very thick. There are two types of felts, wool felt and fur felt. Wool felts are made of 100% wool fibers or little of other fibers are blended with wool fibers. Generally these felts are dull appearance, strong, and rough. Fur felts are made of rabbit, muskrat hair, which are used for making of hats which are smooth, soft, resilient, and water repellent. Felts are used in making hats, slippers, shoe insole, earmuffs, table padding, and industrial uses where shock and noise absorbent properties are required.